Great news, so loving smiling face with hearts. Lee Jun-ho's speech at UN garners global praise. Yoona joins him in tears. The moment the world stood still, love, justice, and one man's voice that shook the UN. The grand blue and gold emblem of the United Nations loomed above the assembly. Diplomats, ambassadors, world leaders, celebrities, and journalists sat in respectful anticipation. Among the sea of poised suits and glittering gowns, Lee Jun-ho, a beloved South Korean actor and global UNICEF Goodwill ambassador, stood at the podium. Beside him in the front row, her hands clasped tightly together, sat Yoona, his partner in art, in advocacy, and now known to the world in love. She didn't blink. Because this wasn't just a speech. This was a moment history would write in gold. Scene 1. The unexpected nomination. Just 3 months earlier, Jun-ho had quietly been nominated by South Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs to deliver a cultural humanitarian address at the United Nations during their Youth and Peace Summit, an event rarely open to celebrities. But Jun-ho wasn't just a celebrity. He had spent the past year funding education initiatives in conflict zones, quietly visiting refugee camps, hosting mental health workshops for war-displaced teens, and filming a documentary that revealed the silent psychological toll of displaced childhoods, one Yoona had co-produced behind the scenes. But when the official announcement dropped, no one could have guessed how this speech would become the most viral, most praised moment of the entire summit. Scene 2. The silence before the speech. As the moderator introduced him, a hush fell over the room. Jun-ho walked slowly to the podium, dressed not in a tux or designer suit, but in a simple black hanbok, a deliberate, quiet homage to his heritage. Yoona, wearing a soft ivory pantsuit designed by a Korean female artist from Jeju Island, watched from the first row, her eyes already brimming with unshed tears. She had read the speech in private. But she knew Jun-ho had added a final paragraph he didn't let anyone see. Not even her. Scene 3. The speech that broke walls. Jun-ho adjusted the microphone, looked around, breathed in. Excellencies, friends, young people of the world. I was born in South Korea, a country that knew war, division, and then, through impossible effort, peace. I became an artist because I believed that through storytelling, we could heal wounds no policy could ever reach. But I never imagined that the faces I met on screen would one day be mirrored in real children. Children I've met in Ukraine, Gaza, Myanmar, and Ethiopia. He paused. They don't know fame. They don't know red carpets. But they know hunger. They know loss. And still they smile. Still they dream. Yoona's chest tightened. She gripped her seat. Then Jun-ho's voice cracked for the first time. One girl I met in Lebanon held my hand and asked, "When will the war stop being inside me?" I had no answer. The audience was frozen. Even heads of state leaned forward. So I ask you, world leaders, decision-makers, power holders, what use are treaties if they don't reach the heart of a child? What good is peace if it's only written on paper? We owe them more than hashtags. We owe them homes. We owe them hope. His voice dropped to a whisper. And if all I can offer is my voice, then let me use it until it breaks. Scene 4. The final words. Unscripted, unexpected. The teleprompter ended. The applause began. But Jun-ho wasn't done. He looked up again directly at Yoona. I want to end not as an ambassador or actor or advocate, but as a man in love. The cameras snapped. Yoona's mouth parted in shock. Yoona, you taught me to speak when I was afraid. You taught me that softness is strength. You stood beside me long before anyone else. So if this world needs more compassion, more heart, more humanity, let them look at you. Because you are all of that. The hall erupted in stunned silence. Yoona was no longer blinking. She stood, tears falling, hands trembling. Jun-ho walked down from the podium and returned to his seat beside her. She gripped his arm like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. And the applause came again. Louder, longer, this time mixed with emotion. Scene 5. The moments the cameras didn't catch. After the speech ended and the applause finally faded, UN officials guided Jun-ho and Yoona backstage. Yoona collapsed into his arms in the hallway behind the stage. Makeup smudged, shoulders shaking. "You didn't tell me," she whispered through tears. "I couldn't," he replied. "If I told you, I would have cried before I even started." He pulled back, looked at him. "I've never loved you more than I do right now." He kissed her forehead. "Then I've done something right." They stayed there, wrapped in quiet, powerful stillness, as global leaders passed by them, some wiping tears of their own. Scene 6. The world responds. The response was immediate and seismic. A BBC headline. Actor Lee Jun-ho delivers speech that echoes through generations. Al Jazeera. From K-drama to global drama, Lee Jun-ho's cry for humanity moves UN to tears. A New York Times. South Korean actor redefines diplomacy at Youth and Peace Summit. Social media exploded with translations, reactions, fan edits, and tributes. "I tuned in for a speech, I witnessed a movement." Lee Jun-ho just did more with one speech than 1,000 politicians have done in 10 years. And Yoona's tears. That's what real pride looks like. Within 48 hours, the speech was watched over 200 million times across platforms. Scene 7. The private dinner that followed. That night, Jun-ho and Yoona were invited to a private dinner with UN delegates. But they quietly declined. Instead, they walked through Central Park under the moonlight, no security, no stylists. Just them. "I feel like I gave a piece of my soul today," Jun-ho said. "You did," she whispered. "And the world needed to see it." They found a quiet bench, ate street hot dogs, talked about nothing and everything. When a Korean tourist accidentally spotted them and asked for a photo, they agreed, smiling genuinely, like the weight of the moment had lifted something eternal. The photo went viral again the next morning. Caption. The power couple the world didn't expect, but absolutely needed. Scene 8. The letter from the girl in Lebanon. A week later, Jun-ho received a package. Inside was a letter from the same girl he mentioned in his speech. "Appa, I saw you on TV. Cried. You remembered me. I told my whole camp you were my friend. People don't ignore me anymore. I sleep better now. Thank you for being loud for kids like me." He read it aloud to Yoona, who broke into tears again. This time happy ones. Jun-ho framed the letter. It now sits above his writing desk in Seoul. Scene 9. The ripples of impact. In the months that followed, Jun-ho was invited to speak at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Yoona began a new initiative to provide digital education to displaced girls across Southeast Asia. UNICEF Korea reported a 700% increase in donations under Jun-ho's campaign. His speech was added to university curriculums worldwide under modern cultural diplomacy. More than anything, the public perception of celebrity activism changed. They weren't just stars anymore. They were symbols of quiet revolution, proof that fame and sincerity could coexist, that love and leadership could merge into something bigger than any one person. The cameras had stopped rolling. The applause had faded into a respectful hum. But for Lee Jun-ho and Yoona, the most unforgettable part of that day was just beginning. It wasn't in the speech. It wasn't in the headlines. It was in the moments that came after. The looks, the whispers, the breathless stillness of a world that had just witnessed something extraordinary. Scene 1. The moment the spotlight shifted. As Jun-ho descended from the podium after delivering his 14-minute address to the United Nations, the room was silent. Not out of confusion but reverence. Diplomats and delegates sat frozen. Phones lowered. Heads bowed. In the front row, Yoona stood slowly. Her hands were trembling. She wasn't the first to clap. She couldn't. She was crying. Tears tracked softly down her cheeks, untouched, unashamed. The woman known for her poise on red carpets and charm on variety shows was no longer the performer. She was simply a woman who had just watched the man she loved bare his soul to the world. And the world responded by rising to its feet. A standing ovation thundered through the hall. But Yoona. She walked toward him. Scene 2. A silent embrace in a room that wouldn't stop cheering. She reached him just as he stepped off the stage. He opened his mouth, perhaps to thank her, perhaps to break the moment, but no words came. Instead, Yoona wrapped her arms around him in front of the world. No hiding. No hesitation. No acting. The UN Secretary-General himself stood back, waiting, as the two stood locked in a quiet embrace that said more than any statement ever could. The cameras caught it. But what they didn't catch was Yoona whispering into Junho's ear. You weren't just speaking for them. You were speaking for the boy you once were. And you set him free today. Scene 3. The green room collapse. Behind the grand chamber, in the private green room reserved for keynote speakers, Junho finally let his composure drop. He sat down slowly, still clutching the handwritten pages of his speech, creased at the corners, damp with sweat. Yoona knelt in front of him. You didn't breathe once during that last line, she said, smiling through her tears. I thought you were going to pass out. I almost did, he replied, chuckling softly. I wasn't speaking. I was praying. She took the speech from his hand and kissed the paper. Then today, she whispered, you were both a prophet and a poet. Scene 4. The ambassador's line. The unusual honor. 15 minutes later, as Junho and Yoona emerged from the green room to leave the building, they were met with something utterly unexpected. A line of global ambassadors standing silently in the hallway, waiting to shake his hand. One by one they offered short words. You reminded us why we took these jobs in the first place. This was more than cultural diplomacy. This was spiritual. Your voice just did what decades of policy couldn't. A delegate from Ghana took off his lapel pin, a blue peace dove, and handed it to Junho. Not even heads of state make us cry, he said. Yoona watched it all, silent, her pride impossible to hide. Scene 5. The question that changed them. Later that night, in their hotel suite overlooking the East River, Yoona stood by the window, staring at the glow of Manhattan. Junho was behind her, now changed out of his hanbok and dressed casually, sipping green tea. They didn't speak for several minutes. Then Yoona asked, do you think you'll ever top today? Junho smiled, placing his cup down. He walked over, wrapped his arms around her waist, and whispered into her shoulder. Only if you say yes when I ask you something else. He turned. Wait. You're not. I'm not yet, he said softly. But I will. And Yoona smiled, a tear slipping down once more, this one golden with joy. Scene 6. The unedited footage that went viral. Though the speech had been officially streamed on the UN's YouTube channel, it was a behind-the-scenes clip, recorded by a staffer, that broke the internet. In the clip, just before stepping on stage, Junho stood in the hallway backstage, his hand tightly gripping Yoona's. She leaned in, pressed a kiss to his cheek, and whispered, Don't speak perfectly. Speak honestly. That was it. That was the prayer before the storm. And when fans saw it, the clip racked up 75 million views in 36 hours. Scene 7. The backlash they never cared about. Not everyone was pleased. Political commentators accused Junho of being too emotional for a formal summit. One headline read, Pop